A lot of times we look at what our potential could be, and we justify that to think about to be selfish. Well, if I can get to this level, then I'll start doing this. Or if I have this much money, then I'll help these people. Or if I have a desire to change this in the world, all I need to do is once I can get here, or if I can make $100,000 a year, anything above that, I'll start giving. Well, what if you never make $100,000? What if you made $30,000, but you could have given $8 and it would have changed the world for someone else? You're gonna pass up on what you can do now, the ripple that's produced because of your impact, because you are thinking about the potential of your impact.
Welcome to the Daron Earlewine podcast, where we awaken you to become who you were born to be. Here's your host, Daron Earlewine.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 49. Actually, you're not welcome back to episode 49. This is your first time with episode 49 of the Daron Earlewine podcast, but welcome back to the podcast. If this is your second time listening, if this is your first time, not welcome back, just welcome. How about that for a start of a podcast? What's up, everybody? So glad that you're here. Crowd's going crazy. They're feeling the energy. They're feeling the flow. I am too. Guess what? My kids went back to school today, okay? Just keep it going for that. Praise Jesus. All three of them went back to school, and we're starting. It's big. I don't know where your kids, or if you have kids, you know what I mean? Maybe your kids are old. Maybe they're not born yet. Maybe you don't want kids. Maybe, I don't know. My kids are a junior, a freshman, and a fifth grader, which is mind-blowing. I can't believe that is the case for my life right now. It just keeps going. And guess what? Congratulations to me today, because it's my 20th anniversary to my wonderful wife, Julie. 20 years. 20 years. And I tell you what, if you had gone, I can't believe how quickly and how long it's taken us to get to 20 years of anniversary. I don't know if you're anywhere close to this. Maybe this makes sense to you. It's like I look back and I can remember, I remember the first 10 years of our marriage. I remember that decade. And I can remember the kind of waypoints along the way. I mean, we had all three kids. I mean, I planted a church. We did that whole thing. There's a lot of life lived in that first 10 years. And I can remember celebrating the first 10 years and then stepping into the next 10 years. And over the past 10 years, we've had a ton of life. But it all kind of just feels like it just happened. But it didn't just happen, because it's been 2 freaking decades. And here's the crazy part. And I'm not just saying it because I have to say it, right? I love my wife more today than I ever have. And here is why. It's because I think finally, after 20 years, I am actually starting to learn how to love her specifically well. And I don't know about you, and this wasn't even planned in the notes. If I showed you my notes, it's not even in the notes. Here's what I've had to realize, and maybe you're a quicker study than I, but I tend to learn things the hard way, and I tend to learn things a lot slower than is necessary. And what I am amazed by is how long it's taken me to become as unselfish as I am now, meaning that that's not a positive thing. I'm still really selfish now. I'm less selfish than I was 10 years into my marriage, but I would have thought that I would have learned to be less selfish a lot quicker than I have. And I don't know about you and where you're at. And maybe it's not a marriage. Maybe it's a friendship thing. Maybe it's a sibling thing. But I just wonder, how selfish are you? That's what we're going to talk about in today's podcast. And actually, more specifically, that's what Arron Stanton, our guest, is going to talk about in episode 49 here on the Daron Earlewine podcast. A guy who grew up going to church, left high school, and then removed all boundaries, all guardrails, and just dropped the hammer with 0 to 100 on an absolute no-holds-barred party lifestyle. Complete selfish, self-gratifying party for 7 years, where all he did was take and take and take. And it took him to rock bottom. And we're going to hear that story and then hear how he's taken that moment and absolutely flipped it on its head to where he said, now relationships are going to go over everything. He started an organization here in town in Indianapolis called Synergize. It's a group of people coming together monthly to actually make a difference with other people who want to make a difference, networking, bringing harmony and connection together. It's a beautiful thing. He's going to tell you about it. But what I want you to kind of set the table for you is to realize that this isn't just about Arron's story, and this isn't just about him letting you know what Synergize is doing. This is an opportunity for God to speak to you about where are you in the level of becoming a selfless servant to where you actually give more life than you take. Boom. Hey, listen, I'm so glad you're listening to the podcast, and here's what I need from you. I need to hear from you. And I thank you guys. As I'm around town, people come up and stop me. Hey, listen to episode whatever, loved it. Listening to the episodes, love it, blah. Great, I love it. If you see me around town, around the country, if you're listening, I'm in your town, you see me, come up to me. Let me know how much you enjoy the podcast. Or if you hate it, be like, you got to stop doing that. I hate that part of the podcast. Let me know that too. But if you don't see me around town or you don't live in town, I would love to get some feedback from you guys about what you're learning from the podcast, what's inspiring you, what's confusing you, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of. And I get it. I was just boo-hooing with producer Jen, irritated that not that many people are reaching out. And she said, Daron, what are some of your favorite podcasts? And I told her, and she said, have you ever reached out to them when they ask you to? And I said, no, I haven't done that. No laugh track. No, I haven't reached out to the people that asked me to reach out because I'm mowing my lawn or I'm driving somewhere and I'm just consuming the content that they're putting out. And I'm very grateful that they put it out there because I enjoy it and I learn from it. And they say, would love to hear from you. And then I don't actually reach out. So here's the deal. I'm going to do my best on my favorite podcast. If they say that I can reach out and I'm going to, I will stop myself and I will send them a message. I will reach out. If you will reach out to me so we can have a conversation and grow together, okay? Very simple way to do it. You can email me. You know how email works. It's very simple. Just Daron@blackbirdmission.com. D-A-R-O-N, Daron@blackbirdmission.com. Would love to hear from you. You can also text me. 317-550-5070. It's just that easy. Send me a text. I'll respond to you. And you can send me a message through any of the social media platforms. You know how that works because I know you do social media. Would love to see what God's teaching you. Okay? Listen, we're going to get into this episode. And like I said, with Arron Stanton from Synergize, he is the Chief Relationship Officer of Synergize. And Arron's story is interesting. Is if I want to take him through spiritual DNA. He hasn't gone through it yet. I guarantee if we take Arron Stanton through spiritual DNA, we're going to discover that he is probably an Enneagram 7 would be my guess, and that he is an evangelist connector. That's his calling and why God put him on earth, to be an evangelist connector. And he is really, really, really good at it. And he's going to tell you about the fact that he's been good at it since he was a little kid. Is that he didn't really want to actually go to school and do the assignments. He just wanted to be at school and connect with people. And he connected with people so well that he usually was sent to the principal's office for connecting more than he was learning, okay? I had that all the time. Every single report card of my whole life growing up in elementary school, I got the same things. Talks too much, can't stay on task. Every single time. I had to sit down with my parents. Daron, once again, they're saying that you're talking too much in class and you can't stay on task. This is correct. That was my problem all the time. And guess what? It's still my problem, okay? You want to know what I do in life? I talk too much and I can't stay on task. It's actually, though, the genius of my life. It just didn't work very well in third grade. And Arron had the same thing. And here's what I want you to know. We talk about the understanding that when you understand your spiritual DNA, the 2 Peter tells us, we talk about this in spiritual DNA, that you're given everything you need for life and godliness through your knowledge of Jesus. And what I want you to know is this, is that everything you need to become who you were born to be, it's already in you. And it's in you, not actually after you start serving Jesus Christ. It's in you right now. Your personality, your gifts, the strengths and abilities, the calling that God has placed upon your life, the way he's knit you together, it is all there, and it's been a gift from him from the beginning, from the moment you were born. He put you together. He knit you together in your mother's womb, and you make sense. And you have been prepared in advance to do good works on this earth. It's waiting for you, and it's already in you. You could be listening to this, and you are not a follower of Jesus. You're just curious, and so you've stumbled upon this podcast. You already have everything you need in you to do the mission that God placed you on earth to do. You don't have to go out and get it somewhere else. Now, what Arron's going to show us is this, is the things you need to be exceptional at certain things you already have. Arron is a connector, relationship builder, evangelist. He could be phenomenal at any sales he wanted to be involved in. All of this, he could be massively successful in all that. And all of that is not because he's that good or that he read a book or he went to college. All of that is because God made him better at that than most other people. That's his calling. What he's going to show you, though, is that when we don't live with the character and the actual nature of God in us, what happens is we destroy life rather than create it. We become a consumer and a taker from life, and it may give us momentary highs and small little glimpses of pleasure and joy, but it will not sustain, and it'll eventually destroy. Because here's the deal. What's true about you is you already have everything you need to live, right? But the reality about you and me is that we were created in the image of God, and God in himself is a servant. You want to know one of the greatest qualities of God in his heart is that he's a servant. He's the greatest servant of all. And so you're created in his image. So for you to live the best possible life, the most fulfilling, the most joyous, the most peaceful, the most purpose-filled life you possibly can, you live a life where you become more and more like Christ, meaning you become more and more of a servant. What Arron's going to tell you about, and yeah, I can't wait for you to hear it, is he got to a place where he was in the church, he was doing the whole thing, and he said, you know what, he got out of high school, and he's like, you know what, screw this. I'm done trying to be the servant nice guy. They said all this stuff, partying and this stuff wasn't any fun. And he was like, I'm going to go find out. And guess what? It was fun, and it is fun. I think that's one of the dumbest things we tell kids, like, listen, sin's not fun. Wrong, right? Have you sinned recently? It is fun. Right? It's not that it's not fun, it's that it's not fulfilling and that it destroys. And so Arron's going to tell you the story. He went from 0 to 100. He dropped the hammer and he said, I'm not living for anybody else but me. I'm going to use every gift and ability I have to gather people and to connect with people and to make a great party and a great group of people. And I'm going to use people. I am going to consume people for my own pleasure and what I want out of them. And he began to live an absolutely selfish lifestyle. And he did that for 7 years. And then he hit rock bottom and he looked back and realized he had destroyed everything that was important to him. He chose quantity over quality. He had no boundaries. He had no priorities. He just wanted to have a good time and consume substances and people. And he's going to take us to a moment, and I want you to listen to this. For 7 years, Arron kept taking and taking and taking life from other people, and it led him to such a place of deep darkness and depression that he wanted to take his own life. And that is a stark and difficult reality, that if you live your life solely taking life, it will lead you to a place where you ultimately want to take your own, because it leads you away from what you are actually created to do, which is to reflect the heart and the image and the nature of God, who is a servant. You have everything you need to become who you were born to be and live a life of passion and purpose and efficiency and effectiveness, success. But if you're not living it to mirror the heart and character of God, it will leave you wanting. And it will leave you taking and damaging that which you care for most. Let's jump in. Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to leave you with this scripture to get your spirit and your mind going in the right direction as you listen to this interview and this story with Arron Stanton. It comes from Philippians chapter 2, and it says it like this. Therefore, if you have ever had any encouragement from being united with Christ, any comfort from his love, any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, listen to this. In humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you into the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So good. So good. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. If you do that, you will find your life giving life to others. You will not be a taker. You will be a giver. And you will become the person that you were created to be. Let's go on this journey right now with Arron Stanton, Chief Relationship Officer of Synergize, on episode 49 of the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Welcome back to the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Excited to sit down today with Arron Stanton. Arron, I've heard about you. So you're like a living legend.
Hopefully good. Yeah.
No, it's all the good things. I keep meeting people, and here's what's great. I keep meeting people that I'm really impressed with, that I look up to. And at some point in the conversation, they say, you got to meet Arron. You got to know what's going on with Synergize. And so it's been on my to-do list, and I'm so glad to sit down today and not only get to know you better, hear your story, but to allow all of our listeners to hear about it too. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Arron, you are the founder and president, CEO, the bigwig, the head cheese for Synergize. Tell us a quick little blurb about what Synergize is about, and then I want to know a little more about you personally. So tell us about what Synergize is.
Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm the head cheese. I'd say I'm one piece of it.
Okay.
But
a slice of cheese.
I'm a slice of cheese, yes. But a very, very great cheese, like Velveeta or something. Yeah. So none of that craft American cheese.
Yeah, right.
Synergize is essentially a community of, on the surface, it look like business leaders and community leaders. But realistically, it's a community of people because of who they are, not what they do. So it's a community of givers, people that believe that their life can have purpose, or that they are living in purpose, or are searching for purpose. They love people. Some of them love God. Some of them don't love God, but hopefully all of them do at some point.
Sure.
And we're passionate about making a positive difference in the world. So it's essentially a community that is people that value people, and people that value contributing and giving to positive differences rather than just taking to better themselves. They think that, a lot of them are crazy enough to think that they might be able to change the world. So it's a community of people that might be able to help you with that.
I love it. I want to hear the story of how that came together. Give us a little overview of Vitals. You married, you got kids. Where do you live? Give us some of the nuts and bolts there.
Yeah. Married. My wife's name is Tara. She's amazing, way out of my league. Tried not to tell her that very often so that she doesn't realize that. Awesome kids. I've got a 13-year-old Xavier with a Z and a 5-year-old Edison after the great Thomas.
I like it.
So that's kind of my home life. They're my rock and my support, and the reason why I'm able to go out and be and do the things that I do. I live in Westfield, Indiana. Moved here from Richmond, Indiana about 4 years ago. Synergize is obviously the day job. It started about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And so I just kind of, whether I'm with my family, with my friends, at church, at work, just trying to be who God created me to be. Yeah. And whichever box that I'm kind of in during that, trying not to let it define me, but allowing, hopefully me to define that, I guess.
Yeah. I love, Arron. It's so hand in glove to what we talk about each week here on the podcast of, awakening people to become who they are born to be. And I've gotten to hear a little bit of your story, but I want to jump into it and just let you unpack it, because so many of the principles that we talk about here on the podcast, that I talk about often in Spiritual DNA, about so much of our passion for life, a lot of times being born out of the crucible of pain in life, and how God can take and literally redeem and reshape and reclaim really anything in our life, and a lot of times to repurpose it and give it back to us in a beautiful way. That's a lot of your story. And so I want to get into that because, Synergize, somebody could say, well, that's just kind of like a networking group with business leaders, but you guys are doing so much more. And the reason you're doing it is because you've come to a place in your life where his motto, right, is I see it on all the stickers and all the cards, is a relationship over everything.
Yeah.
And you came to that understanding. Maybe you learned it the hard way.
Yeah, I did. Absolutely.
So I want to get to how you started Synergize and kind of that kind of spark idea moment. But why don't we go back a little bit and maybe paint a little bit of context of what brought you there? Because I'm guessing if we went back, and I ask this question all the time on the podcast, if we go back and we hang out with 10, 11, 12-year-old Arron, is he like, someday I'm going to grow up and I'm going to bring together business leaders and change the world around in community in Indianapolis? I'm guessing that probably wasn't on the agenda.
It's actually funny because it kind of was, right?
Okay.
So you ask a 5 or 6-year-old, what is it you want to do?
Yeah.
They don't have a definition of what they want to do based off what the world has given them permission to do. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a pirate. I want to be a princess. If you would have asked Arron Stanton at 5 years old, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would probably have said, I just want to hang out with my friends and help my friends become friends with each other and just be happy and love people and hug people and cool. Well, that's what I'm doing now, right? So I, obviously I didn't give myself permission to that a lot of steps along the way. And the world obviously doesn't give you permission to think that way or to be that.
Can you think of something, Arron, though, that 5, 6-year-old version of yourself, like when you say that you would have felt that?
Yeah.
Like,
so with school, we'll look at like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, right? Yeah. Teachers always want to talk to the parents. What do they have to say about Arron? Aaron's not a bad kid. He's a good kid. He's got a great heart, loves people, but he has a hard time sitting, listening, and doing what he's supposed to do. He thinks that school is a place to come play and to make friends, and to hang out with friends and to have fun and to make people laugh. Well, that's not necessarily what school is meant for, right? Outside of school, you can be who you're meant to be, but within school, you're to be who you are told to be.
Yeah.
Same with, at church or at your friend's house or all these different things when you're at a restaurant. What are you supposed to do? Don't joke around and play. Focus on eating, right? So there's all these boxes where you're able to be who you are as long as it fits within those constraints. Well, myself, I was who I wanted to be at school. That's why I didn't make a very good grades. Teachers probably didn't like me a lot. I spent more time on the outside of the classroom in the hallway or in the principal's office than I did on the inside because I just wanted to be friends with everyone. And
you were a
just
networking specialist at 6 or 7. They for some reason they wanted you to learn to spell and do math, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was stupid. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, so I still can't spell very well, but I mean, I can sometimes make people laugh, but I can definitely give a good hug.
Well, what I love about Arron, it's making me think an episode that we just released a couple weeks ago, with actually from talking about school, was my high school band director, a guy named Scott Lang, and leadership coach around the nation now, phenomenal guy. And he kept saying that you're going to do the most good in the world doing what you're most good at. Yeah. And it's a simple quote, but it's just stuck with me. And I think about even back, in what we teach people and people discover through spiritual DNA is there's so much of who God's created you to be that literally it's been in you from the beginning.
Yep.
And looking at that, like the good that you're doing, it literally was something that you were good at even in your childhood. But like you're saying, it didn't necessarily fit the box of what was accepted or expected at that point and in that space.
Yeah. And then you also got to look at longevity, right? Okay. So we'll just use like a Bible example, right? So Peter stepped out the boat.
Yeah.
He could walk on water, but how long did he walk on water, right?
Yeah.
Same with me and building friendships. I could create friendships, get along with everybody, but how long do I keep those friendships? Because what's the intent behind it? So if Peter's wanting to step out of the boat to show that I'm brave to walk on water, well, you might prove that, but for how long if your eyes go off of Christ? Are you doing it? Are you walking out on water to get closer to Christ? Or are you walking out on water so people can see that you're a water walker? If I'm creating friendships to make a positive difference in the world, those friendships become lifelong friendships that become stronger and better as time goes on. If you're creating friendships for other reasons, I need somebody to go to the bar with me, or I need somebody to make me feel loved tonight, or to feel like I'm in control of things, or somebody to build me up even when I'm wrong, somebody to not challenge me, somebody to just pat me on the back when they really should be in my face. Friends that want to hold me to a higher standard rather than allowing me to sink because it makes them feel better about themselves. So depending on the objective or the destination that you're trying to take that thing, will determine a lot of times the longevity of it. So I have a handful of friendships that have been what you call lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
That have started at a young age. But a lot of my friendships, I was really great at sparking it, building it, getting to know the person. But anytime it wasn't only about me, I destroyed those friendships. So I took, my natural knack, I guess, to break the ice and to create intimacy or access with people. But then I would betray that trust. And it was because when you're living a life for yourself rather than for others, you just destroy everything around you. So I kind of spiraled out of control. And from 18 to around 25, about a 7-year period, although I valued relationships when I was younger, I valued relationships at that time, and I value relationships now. There's a 7-year period where if that relationship wasn't what I wanted or producing what I wanted it to produce right then and there,
Yeah.
I added no value to it. So I destroyed everything, every friendship, every relationship, whether it be with a girlfriend or whether it be a boy that is now looking up to me as a father, or whether it be a friend that is looking at me as somebody they could trust. When you constantly let everyone down, the longevity of what you're great at creating will dwindle as well. So
That's really powerful, and it makes me think about, as one of the things that people go through in spiritual DNA is understanding their voice or their calling in the kingdom, and it comes from Ephesians chapter 4 where it talks about that, God has created some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And when I see your life, my guess is that God's created you to be an evangelist, or another word we can use there is connector, right? You're a connector of people to other people and people to resources, and you can gather people, and that's something that God has hardwired you to be phenomenal at. What I think is interesting that you're bringing out is there's always that balance, right, of like competency and character.
yeah,
Right. And the competencies were there. You could create, you could connect, but when the character development wasn't there, it actually destroyed and actually it destroyed the product that the competency brought out.
Yeah, I think we look at a lot of things that are broken. We always say, the Christian way of looking at things is it's a heart issue, right? It's not what is happening or what's being produced. It's a heart issue. Well, I truly believe that. Now, I think it becomes a cliche a lot of times because people don't always dig in deeper to that. But I would say it's the truth because I always wanted deep, like real, authentic friendship and relationship. But when my heart is so a heart of stone, and my heart is all about worldly or selfish objectives, as that surface relationship starts pretty easily, but I desire it to go deep. Once it goes deep, if your heart is not in the right place, a lot of times you ruin it. That relationship would have been better being a surface relationship than a deep relationship, because going deep actually ruined it. But when you look at that, at some point, when you allow God to be part of it, and it's no longer about you and that person, but it's about just being a vessel for Christ and allowing Christ to be whatever it is that person needs at that particular time. Yeah. Sometimes they need that accountability. But if you're trying to create accountability for somebody that doesn't even believe, now you're actually just becoming a hypocrite, or you're becoming somebody that is a Bible thumper. So if you will allow Christ to be what they need at that particular moment, sometimes you're planting the seed, sometimes you're helping harvest it. And if you're trying to be what you think you should be, so that, because if you're a planter in a situation, but you want to be the harvester, are you trying to be their Messiah, or are you trying to be used by the Messiah? So if we can really dig into what it is that we are meant to do or be in that particular situation, and realize that a relationship truly is about two people, right? My relationship with my wife is different than my relationship with my son, or different than my relationship with my best friend, or different than the relationship you and I are building. It's still a very true, real, authentic relationship and representation of who I am and who they are, but it's within the constraints of what that relationship is supposed to be with that person. If you look at it spiritually, the same. if somebody tells me that they're atheist during a lunch meeting and I want to hold them accountable or them to understand the conviction that one of my friends that has been serving Christ for 4 years and has asked me to help be a accountability partner for them.
Right.
If I treat those two people the same,
Yeah.
I am now running potentially being my part of what God wanted me to do, because I think that my relationship with them should be the same as my relationship with someone else. And it's just, if you don't have the expectation of this is the result I want, but the result I'm looking for is to just be what I'm meant to be at that particular time for that person.
Yeah.
And we understand it a lot of times in the secular world, right? So if you meet a girl for the first time, if a girl or you are, I want to be married with 3 kids. Okay. Well, you meet for the first time and within 10 minutes of knowing each other, do you throw out, I want to be married and I want to have 3 kids?
Not if you want a second date.
Exactly. You're like, is that what you want or is that not what you want? You don't throw that out there. You start with, what do I want for the next 10 minutes? What do I want for the next hour? What do I want this week to look like?
Yeah.
And if you start there and just be in the moment with who you're meant to be at that moment, God knows the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
If he brings people together, whether it's for marriage or whether it's somebody that I get the honor to father and to raise up, or it's a friend I get the honor to have a cup of coffee with, or a new friend I get to sit with and talk to on a podcast, if I be who I'm designed or meant to be to that person in that moment, then who knows what God's going to do with that.
Well, and so much of that, Aaron, you guys have literally crafted that into what Synergize is all about, because you guys have redefined, because I think what I'm hearing you say as you're saying that is it's about being present, but it's also about the motivation. Are you there for what you get out of it, or are you there for what you can actually give and how you can serve that other person, right?
Amen.
And that is the character of Christ, like through us. But you guys have, even with Synergize, because that's in relationships, but it's in business as well. That whole idea of, I've heard you talk about the whole idea of ROI, how much that's driven in business. What you guys have built into Synergize, you're trying to actually change and redefine that definition. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So ROI, anyone that understands business, I mean, business 101, I did drop out of college, but I still made it through the first class. First class, about ROI. It's, your company or your brand, you make decisions to maximize your company's ROI, which is return on investment, right? So you weigh things, measure things, and then act upon things based on, does it produce a positive ROI or a negative ROI? Well, when you're looking at things on return on investment, that really helps you get or to take or receive as much from the world that's out there to help build your brand or your company. But also when you look at ROI in ways of, like, we call it ripple of impact, right?
Okay.
It's not potential of impact, right? A lot of times we look at what our potential could be and we justify that to think about, to be selfish. Well, if I can get to this level, then I'll start doing this. Or if I have this much money, then I'll help these people. Or if I have a desire to change this in the world, all I need to do is, once I can get here, or if I can make $100,000 a year, anything above that, I'll start giving. Well, what if you never make $100,000? What if you made $30,000, but you could have given $8 and it would have changed the world for someone else? You're gonna pass up on what you can do now, the ripple that's produced because of your impact, because you are thinking about the potential of your impact. Well, you can't take potential with you when you're dead, right? So I believe that although a company, there's nothing wrong for a company to want to produce a return on investment. I believe that if a company or people are not encouraged to maximize their own individual ripple of impact, that the company might grow, but does that really make the world a better place? Does it really impact other people? So if we, as individuals, look at how can I maximize the ripple that's produced because of my impact today, not tomorrow, but today.
Yeah.
Whether it's a smile, or whether it's paying for someone's meal. You talk about the random acts of kindness. we were talking during one of our meetings, and we call it what about a random act of Christ, right? Because when you think of random acts of kindness, you choose like a lot of times a day or a cause that, hey, we're going to get 1,000 people to try to do something randomly kind for people.
Right.
But what if we look at our own life and we think, how can we be the random acts of Christ? And maybe it's don't flip that person off when they cut you off, right? Maybe it's be a little more patient with somebody than even when they're not showing patience to you, or to just love somebody even though they might look like your enemy, right? Or to even just sit down and trade lenses with somebody, or to even when you share your perspective with people, let them know, hey, I'd love for you to try on my lens, rather than forcing your lens to be on people. So when you look at unity, some people say like community is just common unity. I think Rashad says that. And when you create common unity between two people, you've just created community between those two people. And then if each of those people, when you meet somebody or get to talk to them, you look for common unity rather than division. I only have to have common unity with two people. And if that person has it with me and one other person, and then that person has it with them and one other person, and that person has it with them and one other person, you take literally a city and you've created common unity or community within a city. And then if that city just picks one other city to have common unity with, and then that city, now you've got common unity or community within a state. And if that state just finds one state that they could find a common unity with, and they each did that, now you've got common unity or community within the country. And if each country could just pick one other country to find some common unity with, well, everyone talks about world peace. Well, it sounds so big, but really, if you break it down, it might just start with common unity with one person. And if everyone would take that initiative, I can't get along with everybody. You say, could you get along with two people? And if we all asked ourselves that, now you've got common unity or community across the world. And I think that Christ is that common unity, if in my opinion, my belief. But so
good, Arron. You said multiple times, you talked about the impact, and it's obvious the impact that Christ has had on your life. Is that something you grew up in a pastor's home, Christian home, and just followed Jesus all of your life, and this has been the common theme of your life, or where did that come in and actually impact your life?
Yeah, so growing up, I think I was 3 years old. My mom was an alcoholic. She had been married to my brother and sister's dad. They went through a divorce. She ended up getting pregnant due to something that wasn't necessarily something she wanted with another guy, but it ended up happening to her, and she ended up getting pregnant with me. She ended up keeping me, and so for the first, I think about the first 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, she's still, alcoholism, all of this stuff, living kind of a very secular, bad life. And she was driving drunk, wrecked a car. I believe I was sitting in the front seat, no seatbelt or anything. Her and I got Lifeline, both ended up making it out, lived through it. And it was that moment where she kind of had this rock bottom come to Christ, right? And at 3.5, she met who I've known as my dad, but he's my stepdad. He was in the military and kind of had a tougher, younger aged childhood, and made some bad decisions, got into alcohol, drugs, all of that type of stuff. He ended up giving his life to Christ. So as they met, I'm like 3. And so I spend my life brought up in a house where you're in church every Sunday morning, you're at church every Sunday night, you're at church every Wednesday, you don't drink, you don't cuss, you don't listen to bad music, you don't. So it was a very Christian ruled household.
Okay.
My brother was kind of very, screw the rules, I'm going to be who I am, right? So you see him kind of like, I don't know if I'm not going to say it's out of rebellious, but out of choosing not to participate in these barriers and these rules that are put. So I see him, obviously, there's a lot of division between him and my parents because he's choosing. So I just spend my life following the rules. through, school. I've created a lot of friendships and stuff, all of that stuff, but wasn't going to parties, wasn't drinking. I was with the same girlfriend, all through high school, and was really trying to wait till I got married to, have sex and those types of things. Just trying to follow it by the book because that's what I was told to do. And there's consequences if you don't. It's not fun. It'll ruin your life. So my parents both were trying to, I'm not saying that they were trying to do anything wrong, right?
No.
But I don't feel
they were probably trying to do everything right.
Trying to do everything right, trying to protect me. But the thing is, the truth of the matter is I didn't find out until a lot of years later it's not about, it's about a relationship, right? And so say my mom really created this relationship with Christ. If I have not been brought up in a home where I am empowered and allowed to really create this relationship for myself, I'm just told to follow these rules because those are maybe their convictions or rules that she has put in place for herself because of her relationship. Yeah. Once they get put in place for someone else, they might be great boundaries, but if those boundaries prevent the relationship between the person and Christ, then it's all just artificial. So as soon as I turned 18, I got a taste of what getting drunk was. And I was like, this ain't stupid. This is awesome. I got a taste of what getting attention from girls that wasn't my girlfriend was like. I was like, this isn't stupid. This is awesome. I started getting attention and getting a taste of what going to the clubs and partying and being able to live this lifestyle of all the stuff that I was always told not to do was like, and doing it in an area and with people that it would never get back to my parents. Okay. So I was able to go 0 to 100 with no sense of consequences. But the thing is, when you hit a wall and consequences come around and you're left after, 7 years of living that way, you don't want to live at all, right? So
you just went off the deep end.
I did.
For 7 years.
Yeah. Got worse and worse and worse and worse, and started dating a girl named Tara. She was going through a divorce at the time, had a 2-year-old, and met her. And honestly, deep down, I truly was like, this is a girl I want to live right for. I want to make the right decisions and be that type of thing. Is on my own strength, you can't. It doesn't matter. I wanted to, if I told her, if she said, hey, on Saturday, can you not go party all night?
Right.
And can we have dinner, watch a movie as a family, and go to church on Sunday? And I make up my mind, yes, let's do that.
Right.
But then Friday rolls around and I get tanked out of my mind. And then Saturday rolls around and it's my day to, uphold my end of the bargain. Not going out and partying and coming home at 3 a.m. Right? Well, you got friends in your life because that's what you're looking to create. Your friends call and, hey, we've got this party or this, kegger or this, whatever you want to come. I was like, yes, absolutely. Because again, I was building relationships to benefit what I wanted them to be at that particular time. Well, to be honest with you, at 23 years old, being at the bar, being at a party, getting as drunk as I possibly can, and living as reckless as I possibly can, that's a lot funner than sitting on a couch, watching a movie, eating dinner with 2 people, right? If I desire friendship, I'd rather be around 200 of them than just 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because I didn't place a value on which ones were the most important, which relationships are most important. You can put relationships over everything, but if you don't prioritize them, what happens is certain ones should be over the other relationships. So if I'm an extrovert and I love to be around people. So whether I'm with 100 people and drunk or with just 2 of them doing the family thing, if I'm filled up being out with the 100 of them and I don't have a spot or a priority in my life to place other ones over, I feel like life's good because I'm getting all the relationship I need.
Right.
But if the people that need it the most aren't getting it from me, you end up realizing that things being out of order, you can destroy them all.
It sounds like that in that season, Aaron. It's like you were confusing like quantity with quality.
My goodness, that's exactly right. Yep.
So
there was no parameters on relationships.
Just more is better.
Yes. And boundaries, parameters, prioritizing them is key. But yeah, when you don't have those in place, you can get, if you make up your mind, this is what I'm going after, enough determination, you can go after it and you can crush it. You can kill it. You want to make a lot of money? That's pretty easy to do. You want to be friends with a lot of people? Pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
But when you start thinking about the result, the life you want to live, is it a life of purpose or a life of passion, right? Because a lot of times that passion burns out. And when you don't have purpose in a relationship and it was just built on passion, it's like that goosebump feeling.
Yeah.
You go to church and preacher can hoot and holler and all these things and give you chills, but when you walk out, if it didn't create or help you understand that purpose or that calling or how life is to be lived after that goosebump is gone, purpose can, passion can die out when if purpose isn't there.
What I think about is, the whole theme is relationships over everything. It's like you have been consistent with that feeling, that reality, that conviction, from childhood, but for a long season there, you went quantity over quality, and there was no boundaries with it. That's not a great philosophy for life, right?
It's not.
And you discovered that, and there was a turning point for you where you realized, you know what, I've got to reverse this equation, or I don't know that I can live this life anymore.
Yeah. I was just ready to not live. And when I got to that point, when you don't even have the one thing you thought you had, relationship, maybe they're not even quality, maybe just quantity. You don't even have quantity. You don't even have anything left because you've ruined every single one of them and you're so lonely. And lonely is a tough place, but lonely at rock bottom, now that's a tough place. And what I will say is my first real experience of quality of relationship was seeing the love and forgiveness of Tara. We'd separated for a year, continued to spiral out of control, but God had put some type of love and forgiveness in her heart, not for maybe me as a person, but for my soul, that I've never seen. And it's that, of course God loves me. Of course God forgives me, whatever. We all say it, but do we believe it? Have we ever experienced it?
Yeah.
Have we ever shown it to somebody? Probably not. I mean, to an extent, but probably not. And I will say this is a girl that in all accounts should have had nothing to ever do with me again. Should have. I mean, if we're going to be honest, absolutely. Anything you can think of that would destroy a relationship, times it by 100 and add them all up. That's what happens, right? So you look at that and you think, yeah, there's no hope. And I truly saw a love and forgiveness in her that I've never seen or experienced before, is the love of Christ. I saw it from Christ because when you're lonely and rock bottom, if you're looking for it, the hand of Christ can literally reach down into the pits, pull you up, and set you on a foundation that you never, it's a foundation, you could spend your whole life trying to build that foundation, you'll never even reach the surface or the starting point of the foundation Christ wants to set you on. Unfortunately, a lot of times you end up with, at the rock bottom, you either kill yourself or you give your life to Christ. That's why a lot of times, people say, Jesus is in the prison, right? Well, I mean, it was actually really everywhere, but it's us to kind of determine when that time is that we want to actually see him.
Yeah.
And at that rock bottom moment, it's crazy because when you decide not to take your life, but to give your life, and you get to start on day one on a foundation that you could have never built, now you're living, right? And that's, then you really want to know your purpose and your calling. Well, if I love relationships so much, how could relationships be used for good rather than bad?
Yeah.
how could you build longevity of the right relationships rather than starting the quality or the quantity of relationships. And then from that point on, just started meeting people, seeing people that cared about me for who I was and who God wanted me to be, opposed to what I was, right? So, if you're the life of a party, you can create a lot of relationships. But if it's because you're the life of the party, well, at some point the party ends, or at least your party does.
Yeah.
But when they get to know you for who you are and they start to pour into you and give and contribute and hold you to a standard that you never even thought you could have gotten to, not from what the world sees, but within your own personal convictions and accountability, it's truly that iron sharpening iron that the Bible talks about.
Yeah.
And, I'm a lot sharper than I was because of the people in my life. And, but I know that there's still a lot of sharpening that I need, and a lot of sharpening I get to be part of helping others receive.
Can you tell us a story, or maybe the story of when you really experienced that forgiveness and love from Tara?
Yeah. So long story short, when I was at that rock bottom, ended up going back, and I think my brother had a bachelor party, this and that. And back in Richmond, I ended up showing up at Tara's house at 4:00 in the morning, completely drunk.
And you guys had called off. You had been dated for a while.
We'd been dating for 3.5 years prior. She had left me about a year prior to
because of the party and everything.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just could not. I would always say things, and I would do little things to try to make it look like it.
Yeah.
Just couldn't. There was no sustainability.
So she finally breaks it off. You guys really don't see each other for about a year, and you show up on her doorstep 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
She wanted no part of it, of anything with me. But for whatever reason, during that year, she had drawn so close to God that she still had a love for my soul, and still was praying over that, which I didn't know. Right. So show up, ends up letting me sleep on her couch. I went there for different motives. Realized that that's not happening. Her identity is in Christ now, not on how I could try to make her feel. Slept on her couch. End up not wanting to go to church because I'm a liar, and end up walking.
But had you promised her that you would go to church or something?
Oh yeah, I was full of a lot of broken promises.
Okay.
So tell her I'm going to go to church, and that's actually say things like, that's why I'm here. That's actually realistically, when you're in that drunken state, you'll say whatever you want to try to get your way, and then when the rubber meets the road, and you're being held accountable to it, now you're making excuses to why you don't have to uphold your end of the bargain. So end up walking into the church, and that was when I started to realize, you're walking into a church that you're not worthy to be at. You're walking in there still drunk, and you're there with somebody because for whatever reason in your mind, you think you manipulated them or lied to them to get your way. And when every person there could judge you, could shoot you down, could treat you like, what are you doing here? Haven't you done enough damage to these people? But they treat you with love, because even as far gone as you were, they were praying that one day that Christ would still penetrate your heart and allow you to be who you were meant to be, rather than being living for how everyone else sees you.
Yeah.
That was one of those experiences where when you see that you're an answer to their prayer, rather than somebody that even prayer couldn't penetrate. It brought everything so full circle. And it was when I was so actually humbled, and that you have empathy, and you start to realize that my actions and the way that I live, it's not just that it's putting me where it's put me, but it's actually put other people in a place, and it was out of their control. Because when your actions have consequences, I hear a lot of stories about people that have lived for others, and things happen, and they're at this spot, and it's like, man, I couldn't imagine. I had every opportunity to never be at a rock bottom, because looking back, I've been blessed in terms of a lot of things that just happen to good people. Thank God they haven't happened to me. But a lot of very terrible things that you don't wish upon anybody have happened to me, because of my actions that put me there. So, we've all experienced a lot of the same hurts, but it's a difference when you experience the hurt and there was nothing you could have done to avoid it.
Yeah.
And you experience the hurt because you made your bed, now you get to lay in it.
Right.
And when you see that love and forgiveness for people that should not forgive you, but they've allowed Christ to forgive you through them, it's unreal. And from that moment on, I still mess up daily and still not who God wants me to be completely. And I'm striving to become that person, but to see who I've become, not because of my own effort, but because of the love that has been shown to me through people. It's been unreal.
So that morning you go into that church and experience that love and forgiveness, and that was a game changer.
It was. And another big piece of the game changer is just shortly after, when we talk about longevity, right? A lot of times you go through a relationship like that, the person that's been on the receiving end of all the hurt, they might, I got to see you live it out for a year or 2 years or 3 years.
Prove that it's a change,
But to be able to see that transformation and within a very short period of time, be able to have that same trust and belief that it actually is real this time, and to want to start dating, and then several months later to be married, and then 11 months later to be having a kid, and to be deciding that I am going to do life with this person because that's who God created for me, rather than I've got to get away from this person because they're robbing me of what God has for me. It's just to see that being a robber of what God has for you to being a contributor of what God's going to do with you. Those are two polar opposites. And, a lot of times we've experienced both sides of those, but it's really crazy when people experience that through that same person.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
So you've experienced that with your wife. You guys are, building a life together now. And do you feel like, Arron, that so much of the passion you have now to gather a community of people with Synergize was born out of the pain of the damage you did in relationships, that now you want to help people create the quality that you missed in all those years?
Yeah, I've got to make up for lost time, right? I feel like we all have lost time to make up for, right? And like with me, if for 25 years I could have been a value add to people's lives, I could have made a difference in the world in a positive way, but instead it was a destructive way. The fact that I got to a spot where I didn't want to live anymore, and now I'm at a spot where I've decided to live for Christ. If I can't go into this with the same enthusiasm to share the love of Christ with somebody and to try to make a positive difference as I was going into with the enthusiasm to build a fake relationship and tear people down, then, my personality type is 0 to 100, right? So if I'm going 0 to 100 in the wrong way, Christ redirects me, and now I choose to do 30 mile an hour. What was more real to me, the love and forgiveness of Christ or the false joy that the world offered?
Yeah.
And so I'm 0 to 100, right? And it's a lot of hugs, it's a lot of laughing, a lot of fun and stuff. But at the end of the day, the relationships that I'm building now, because of the destination I'm trying to create with them, which is longevity and quality rather than just quantity, I'm excited to see where my relationships are with the people that are in my life a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Before, I used to love to create the relationship, but I look back on a lot of them, and a year into it, the relationship was trash.
Yeah.
And would have been much better for the people around me to have not created a relationship with me because I put them behind.
Yeah.
Now I look at the relationships I have, and it's amazing because I get to think about in 2 years it's going to be even better and deeper and more impactful and creating an even bigger difference in the world than it is today.
Yeah.
And the year after that. So
that ripple effect you're talking about.
Yes. Yep. And you go into it thinking about what that relationship can become for others rather than what and how quickly can I get something for myself from that relationship.
That's it.
Return on investment is, in business, your sales pitch is you you try to position it to where it appeals to people that in a way that you can get something with it from them in a sales cycle. So if I position it right and I be that, can I get what I'm looking for in the next 30 days? But if you're thinking about ripple of impact, it's like, how authentically real can I position it so that people know that it's about what can we do for others together over the next 30 years. So I always say, like, love to ask people, what's your greatest piece of advice? And I say, the whole world pauses. You have a microphone in 5 seconds. What advice do you share with every human on planet Earth? And my answer to that is build relationships for 30 years, not 30 days. Because if you're thinking about 30 days, a lot of times you'll do things that you're not meant to do because you know that there's a destination you're trying to get to quickly that benefits you. But if you're going to do 30 years with somebody, you want to pour and plant and sow.
Yeah.
And because you know that you want to take care of it and you want it to be better 30 years from now than it is today, because you've got to live with it. So if we choose to live that way, whether the relationship lasts 30 years or not, I know you're interviewing or talked about Brendan Preston.
Yeah.
One thing that he shared as we've been building our friendship with me was when he was talking about his wife. He's like, if God's brought her into my life, I hope it's forever, but at whichever point it's God separates that relationship, whether it's we go to heaven together or something happens, right? So if he dies tomorrow, it's every day if he were out of it, will his relationship have made that person's life better before him than it would be after him? And, you live a lot of years just trying to realizing you made everyone's relationships and people's lives worser because you came into them than when you entered. I've got a lot of years of making up to do to continue to try to make lives better because of me than worser because of me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you do it by yourself, that's great because you've changed. But if you can use your story or your testimony or your experiences to help empower even just one person to start thinking that way, well, now you've got 2 people living for ripple of impact.
Yeah.
You're able to do twice as much than you could have if had it just been you. You start sharing it with everybody. What ends up happening is you've got a group or a community of people that are living out on mission and on purpose and doing the things with their life that you're trying to do with your life with people that you'll never meet. And it's just that ripple of effect, and then that rising tide raises all boats.
You got synergy.
Then you got synergy.
So that's the story that created it. Give us, as we close out today, give us some of the nuts and bolts. What does it look like? Somebody says, you know what? I want to make an impact. I want to have that kind of depth. What does it look like to be a part of Synergy?
So Synergize, it's kind of a commitment to reject transactional relationships and a desire to build transformational relationships.
Okay.
If that's a desire in your heart and you feel like whether you're 18 and you're just now getting out to start building relationships and you think those are the kind you want to start with, or you're 85 and you've realized that I might have 10 years left, I might have 5 years left, I might have 2 years left, and I've got to make up for lost time, because a lot of times we don't realize things until it's hindsight's 2020, so you're looking back on it, right?
Yeah.
So I live for transactional relationships, whatever type of transaction that might be, till I was 25. I look at this and I think, man, if only I knew then, I would have changed it. So fortunately, at 25, I started living for transformational relationships. But some people, if you meet them at 18, before they start going for the transactional, and then they get caught in a path that the world will give you a lot of awesome stuff. And if you live that way, a lot of times you might get to a spot where you've received so much that you can't even fathom going back that way. So if you can catch those people early and show them or help them understand that early, you're going to change the trajectory of their life, of their family, of their kids, of the lessons they teach their kids, of their neighborhood, of all of these things.
Yeah.
And then some people, you see that transformation. That's a beautiful thing about a testimony. Some people you see, they lived so many years this way, and then Christ stepped in and it changed. well, what about the sustainability testimonies? So if I've been saved for 7 years, I've still got those thoughts of, well, will it last 10? Will it last 20? Will it last 30? Mm-hmm. Sometimes a 18-year-old who had a pretty decent upbringing and has never experienced anything real negative, they think, well, I don't really have a testimony to share. Actually, your testimony when you're 30 or 40, and I see that for 40 years, Christ never left you, and it wasn't that you had to hit rock bottom to turn your life around, and that for 40 years he stayed with you. Well, I'm only 7 years into my journey.
You need to hear the sustainability.
I need to know the sustainability of it, right?
So that's the Heart for Transformation. Do you guys get together once a year, once a month? What does it look like?
Yeah, so the gatherings once a month, we get together. We call it the Synergize 430 meetup, where, last month we had 160 people come together, and everybody gives $25 to be there. And that $25 goes to supporting a cause, a different nonprofit each month. Some people give $100 to be there. Some people might give $1,000, right? So, but it shows that, $25, you think, well, what kind of difference can I make for $25? Well, if anybody has attended a 430 meetup over the past 6 months, and even they've came one time and gave $25 one time, we just hit $64,000 of an impact that our group has been able to make. So their $25 produced a $64,000 difference funded into nonprofits that are now changing lives. And if we all thought like, well, what would my $25 do? Maybe we would have hit a $100 impact.
Right.
But because a lot of people thought, I can't do it all, but I can do my part. It's if we're all doing our part towards the same destination, the impact that happens is way bigger. And then that ripple that's created because of that might outlive us. So we do a 430 meetup every month to do that. It's the fourth Tuesday of the month. It's amazing. Me and some of the best people I've ever met in my life that, agreed to do life with me and build a friendship. And I still today wonder why they said yes, but I just thank God that they did say yes. We get to come together and do life together and make a difference together.
I love it. I love it. I love your story, Arron. I love the passion. I love that you've taken and truly allowed, Christ to take the pain you've gone through, even the pain you caused others to go through. Yeah. And it's now the fuel of passion to create this kind of ripple effect. And in 1 year, $64,000 worth of impact. And what I can't wait to think about is you go out, 20 years from now, and just think about the ripple effect of just the relationships that are being built.
Unbelievable.
You know what I mean? From generation to generation, it's going to be beautiful. Somebody's listening right now, and they're like, I've got to be a part of Synergize. How do they stay connected to you and get connected?
Website, synergizeindy.com. There's a Z in it because I'm a millennial. And it's also spelled with a Z. LinkedIn, Arron Stanton. It's actually spelled super weird. ARRON, 1 A, 2 R's. Because my parents also didn't know how to spell, apparently. But reach out to us, hit us up. We have around 150, 160 members right now. So talk to any of the members, right? So you don't necessarily need to talk to me. I say I'm 150th of what Synergize is. So
beautiful. If
I sit down with you, I can share my perspective. If you sit down with two members, Synergize better than I could have told you because you've got it from two 150th of it rather than just one 150th of it. It's not about me. It's not about anyone individually, but collectively, it's about what we are doing together, and that's a beautiful thing.
It is, Arron. I love it. Everybody that I've met that's part of Synergize, they and I love what you're saying, is they all have a different perspective, but they all say they love it. They love the impact that they're making. And so thank you for being on the podcast. Thanks for the impact that you're making. Thanks for just continuing to say yes to the opportunities that God's brought into your life. You're making a great impact. And looking at your story from childhood and now, you truly are becoming who you're born to be, man.
I hope so. One day at a time.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, but I'm excited to make today whatever it's going to be. And
I love it.
One day at a time.
Love it. I love it. And we're back. Arron Stanton. Hello, Synergize. Hello, Synergize. Yes, we're going to. Hey, you know what? Here's what I want to do. I'm gonna wrap it up. We've been together too long. You've already mowed the lawn. Here's the deal. I read half of that scripture because I wanted to bring the second part back after the interview, because we are going to have the same mindset as Christ. And here's what it is, and we'll wrap it up with this. The mindset of Christ was this, is who, Jesus being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. See, even in that moment, even though he was in very nature God, he didn't want to take, he didn't want to consume, he came to give. It says, rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in the appearance as man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name. In the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Listen, if you want to live a life that God exalts you, if you want to live a life to the glory of God, if you want to live a life to the full, you don't live a life that takes, you give a life that gives. Just like Jesus. Here's the deal, though. That's a miracle. Because you know what? No one on their own chooses God. None of us move in that direction. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God regularly. We're naturally selfish. And what we need is God to do the supernatural work of changing us from the inside out. But you know what? That's exactly what he wants to do. So I want to pray for you, that journey would begin for you, and then I'm going to let you go. Jesus, we thank you for today. We thank you for the sunshine. We thank you for life. We thank you for the opportunity to serve others. We thank you for the example you have set for us. And I pray, God, that you would give us the courage, the humility, the discipline to choose to serve, to take on the attitude and the heart of Christ, who being in very nature, God, you could have put yourself above everything, Jesus, but you chose to humble yourself and serve. And I pray that you would give us the supernatural strength that we need to do that in the relationships around us. I pray that you would give us the wisdom to prioritize the relationships that matter most, that we would choose quality over quantity. And I pray, God, that we would put relationships over everything, first with you and then with others. And thank you for the example you've set and for walking this journey with us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Hey! It's a good thing we're made on purpose and for a purpose, isn't it, friends? Purpose to serve, to create, alongside with God, who is near us, not far. And when we move this direction, we get to see that he is absolutely for us and not against us. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Once again, I want to hear from you. Easy ways to do it. Email me, Darren@blackbirdmission.com. Text me, 317-550-5070. Or reach out through any social media channel. Have a great week. Can't wait to talk to you again on episode 50. Coming up, the big 50. Next time on the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Peace out.